The Ayanokoji group is currently hanging out at the mall when Miyake mentions that Class C has been following him. Ayanokoji then notices two people stalking them right now as they casually discuss the results of the final exam. It turns out Class D successfully defeated Class C, resulting in a 100-point swing in their favor. However, Class C was recently penalized 100 points for an unknown reason, which sets up Class D to be promoted next semester. Ayanokoji then steps away from the group to confront the stalker from Class A. Kamuro immediately threatens to out Ayanokoji to Ryuuen. However, he threatens to tell Sakayanagi that her spy was noticed. In the end, they both agree to just stay quiet. Sometime later, Sudo arrives to class complaining that Class C has been harassing him. Horikita actually praises Sudo on keeping his cool, then turns to Ayanokoji stating that he's the cause of Ryuen's antics. She then asks why he's been spending so much time with that group, to which he says, "I enjoy being with them." Then after class is over, Horikita asks Ayanokoji to return a library book for her, and he agrees to do it since he wants to check out the book for himself. He immediately goes to the library and notices a girl struggling to reach the top shelf. This turns out to be Hiyori, and they discuss books for a moment before she asks if he would join her for lunch. Ayanokoji can't help but to wonder if Ryuuen would be okay with this, and Hiyori states that she only cooperates with him when she wants to. Together, they head to the cafeteria and actually hit it off pretty well since they're both awkward loners who really enjoy reading. Ayanokoji even ends up borrowing a book from her personal collection. After class that evening, Horikita gets annoyed when she hears that Ayanokoji is hanging out with his friends once again. Then upon his arrival, Hasebe teases Ayanokoji about his date with Hiyori, and it's very obvious that Sakura is concerned. Miyake then mentions that Class C is still following him around, and the group discusses if this hidden mastermind even exists. Sakura then blatantly asks Ayanokoji if he is X, but of course he denies it. The very next evening, Sato asks Ayanokoji on a date. However, Chabashira-sensei's gaze forces him to decline. He walks out of the classroom and a visibly nervous Chabashira-sensei escorts him to the principal's office. He steps inside to find the principal sweating buckets and his father resting on the couch. Dad promptly orders him to drop out of school, but of course he refuses. Dad states that he owns Ayanokoji and explains that the caretaker responsible for telling him about this school recently committed self-immolation due to Dad ruining his son's career. Dad goes on saying that he did this because of Ayanokoji and threatens to have him expelled. Ayanokoji exclaims that he came to this school in order to learn what the White Room can't teach him, and he strongly suspects that Dad cannot get him expelled. Then this is the moment when Dad realizes that his prodigy of a specimen and son is doing his best to prove his ideals wrong. Suddenly, the school chairman, Mr. Sakayanagi, then enters the office and begins defending Ayanokoji. Dad declares that the interview process is a fraud and that Ayanokoji should have never been accepted into this school. Sakayanagi doesn't deny this, but instead reveals that students are accepted solely based on recommendation, and that he himself, who knows about the White Room project, personally recommended Ayanokoji to be enrolled. Dad then leaves the school after confirming that Ayanokoji can be expelled if it's according to the rules. Now you see, this confrontation has made Ayanokoji realize a lot of things, including that Chabashira-sensei has been lying to him this whole time. He tells her that she must really want to reach Class A if she's even willing to manipulate her students. He then boldly states that he's done helping Class D because he now knows that the chairman is protecting him. Ayanokoji then ends this conversation by threatening to drag Class D back down to the very bottom if Chabashira fucks with him again. Hold up. When making these videos, I skip over a ton of minor details. So if you crave the full story, I encourage you to buy the light novels for yourself. And if you do that, then be sure to use my link down below in order to support the channel. Now let's continue. That evening, we find Ayanokoji taking a walk outside, contemplating what he should do next. He decides to give Karuizawa a phone call, and she asks why he chooses to hide behind Horikita. He tells her that it wasn't his choice in the first place to help the class, and that he never actually wanted to do it. Ayanokoji then explains that he's done helping Class D and in turn won't be manipulating her anymore. Karuizawa is stunned and begins fumbling over her words, as Ayanokoji ends the call by reassuring Karuizawa that he will keep his promise. Now that night, back at his dorm, Ayanokoji is met by an unexpected visitor. Manabu enters into his room, explaining that Nagamo's changes will result in a large number of expulsions next year, and that he's even begun recruiting new members. Thus, Manabu has made this visit today to ask Ayanokoji for help with sabotaging the student council's plans. Ayanokoji immediately declines, pauses for a moment, then says that he will think it over. We then get a very brief scene with Ichino's and Sakayanagi as we learn that Class A narrowly triumphed over Class B during the finals. The following day, during lessons, they are suddenly invaded by Class C. Sudo and Harada intervene as Ryuuen congratulates them on their 2B promotion. Though of course, Koenji pays them no mind and walks right out of the classroom as Ryuuen turns to follow. 5 of our main characters immediately search the campus and find Koenji completely surrounded. Koenji retaliates by simply styling his hair, and even having Ryuuen hold a mirror for him. Ryuuen then breaks the mirror while asking Koenji if he is X. Sakayanagi then arrives as Koenji answers with,
"Dragon Boy, I'm not X."
Sakayanagi laughs, Ryuuen gets aggressive, and Koenji doesn't even budge. Ryuuen proceeds to ask him who is the hidden mastermind, but Sakayanagi interferes as Ryuuen warns her not to call him Dragon Boy. Class A then makes fun of Ryuuen, who counters by reminding them of the contract that he made with Katsuragi on the island. Ryuuen asks once again about X. Koenji refuses to answer, and Sakayanagi refers to him as Dragon Boy. Ryuuen rushes towards her with an explosive kick, though one of her minions jumps between them, taking the blow. Horikita states that everyone here is crazy just before the group disperses. Today's class ends, which marks the beginning of winter break. Ryuuen invites Hiyori to join him on his hunt, however she declines. Ibuki asks what he's planning, prompting him to explain that today they will be extracting X's identity from Karuizawa. You see, Ryuuen told Karuizawa to meet him on the roof, and that if she doesn't, he will expose her past. He also sent X a message informing him of said meeting before proceeding to the rooftop and vandalizing the only camera. Karuizawa arrives right on time and begins acting like she has no idea what this is about. Ryuuen brings up her past and her strong facade begins to crack. She suggests that she could easily lie to him and asks if they can hurry this up because it's literally freezing outside. Ryuuen then orders Ishizaki to grab the buckets of water and orders Ibuki to grab hold of Karuizawa. Now, Ibuki's reluctant at first, but quickly ends up obeying, though even after hearing all of this, Karuizawa still refuses to talk. Ryuuen then goes on a rant about how the school's rules are filled with loopholes, and about how different grade levels must have different rules. Ishizaki finally returns and Ryuuen orders him to dump the water on the already shivering Karuizawa. He proceeds to torment her, and Ibuki states they've gone too far. However, even so, Karuizawa still refuses to talk. We then switch to Karuizawa's perspective, as she's doused with a 3rd and 4th bucket of water. She's quickly sinking deeper and deeper back into the despair that she came to this school to escape. She begins to wonder if Ayanokoji has abandoned his promise, and debates whether or not to just give up. Ryuuen then reveals his trump card, explaining that X purposely lured Karuizawa to the bottom of the ship to be bullied by Manabe. It's then that her lips begin to quiver and sounds seep out, as she tells Ryuuen, "Screw off!" thus stealing her resolve to not give up on Ayanokoji, even though he's the one that trapped her. Earlier that same day, Ayanokoji receives 2 particular text messages, one from Ryuuen and the other Karuizawa. He reads them and chooses to ignore them, just as Sato asks him out on another date. Ayanokoji declines, however he does promise to go on a date during winter break. He then leaves with his group, but returns a few moments later to meet with Chabashira-sensei. You see, he's been genuinely curious as to why she's so obsessed with reaching Class A, but she doesn't give him a concrete answer. He then informs her that Ryuuen is going to torture Karuizawa. However, she refuses to play along with his plans. Now, Ayanokoji actually expected this much, and he simply invites her to be a witness. At this point, it's been roughly 30 minutes since Karuizawa went to the roof, and they've watched Ishizaki acquire numerous buckets of water. Chabashira asks if he's going to intervene, but instead of answering, he begins asking questions related to private points. She reveals that absolutely everything has a predetermined value, and some things even have prerequisites before they can be purchased. She then accuses him of trying to find a loophole in the system, which he openly admits to by saying the other classes are doing the same. Ayanokoji calmly pulls out his phone to send a message, just as Chabashira begins pressuring him to rescue Karuizawa. He says, yes, I'll reveal myself as the Mastermind in just a minute, which doing so will eliminate the last hold that Chabashira has on him. Manabu then arrives to stand as a witness, and he asks Ayanokoji to try to make this quick and to not forget their arrangement. Ayanokoji goes to the roof alone and immediately apologizes to Karuizawa. Ibuki and Ishizaki can't believe this to be X, and Ryuuen asks why he's here. Ayanokoji states that Karuizawa asked for help, and that he is the one they are looking for. Ryuuen laughs, thinking about how Ayanokoji made a poor choice, though he replies with, "It's not like I'm in trouble." Ayanokoji then threatens to report this incident to the school if they tell anyone that he's the mastermind. Ryuuen then attempts to use Karuizawa's past as leverage, however she no longer cares if people find out. Ryuuen then begins to grow agitated as Ibuki attempts to calm him down, but only ends up being hit by Ryuuen. Ishizaki throws a punch, which Ayanokoji catches before crushing his hand. Albert attacks from the side, forcing Ayanokoji to block and dodge before dropping him with a throat chop. Ishizaki attempts another charge, but is met with a strong kick to the knee. Ayanokoji then spins around in one swift motion, kicking Albert and punching Ishizaki, which renders them both unconscious. He then explains that absolutely everything since the sports festival has gone according to his plan. Ibuki goes on the offensive with her kicks, but quickly eats the ground. Ryuuen then takes his turn and begins rambling about how pain generates fear. Ayanokoji allows Ryuuen to land a powerful blow, then says, "I don't understand. Where's the fear?" He then counters, mounts his opponent, and begins wailing on Ryuuen, who just keeps talking shit. Eventually, he does fall unconscious, and Ayanokoji helps Karuizawa walk inside while reminding her that he will always keep his promise. He then wakes up Ryuuen, who claims this war isn't over. However, Ayanokoji explains that there is a witness on the stairs, which causes the life to drain out of Ryuen's eyes. Ayanokoji reassures him that he won't say anything as long as Ryuuen just leaves him alone. Though even so, Ryuuen slides his phone to Ibuki, stating that he will take responsibility for this by dropping out. Ayanokoji then explains that he actually benefits from having Ryuuen here. However, he won't stop Ryuuen from dropping out on his own accord. It's the following morning when Ryuuen bumps into Ibuki while heading to school. She returns his phone and can't understand why he's just giving up. He declares that he was only using Class C for his own benefit. However, Ibuki counters by asking why there's a 3-year plan in his phone to raise Class C all the way up to Class A. Ryuuen lies and thus gets laid out as Ibuki walks away. He picks himself up and goes to meet with Sakagami-sensei and immediately admits to defacing the camera and beating up his classmates. Ishizaki tries to stop Ryuuen but receives a kick as a response. Sakagami-sensei then states that Class D already took responsibility for the camera, which proves to Ryuuen that Ayanokoji has no intention of reporting the incident to the school, though he still wishes to drop out and even begins filling out the proper paperwork. However, Sakagami-sensei hands him 2 more forms, explaining that Ishizaki and Albert wish to drop out alongside him. Ryuuen then wonders if Ayanokoji put them up to this, and he leaves the school building behind with the unsigned paperwork.